developing relationship.
No, they're not, AJ.
They are.
They're not. A lot of your teachings are about addictions, about emotions, about fear, about struggle.
No.
You take people into a sort of holocaust, an emotional holocaust.
Yeah, I can't agree with that, David. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what I...
Hi friends, and welcome to another episode of True Crime and Slumbertime with your host, Bambi/Susan. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Alan John Miller, also known as AJ Miller, also known as Jesus.
AJ, do you always tell the truth?
I always attempt to, as far as I know it at that time, yes.
So, did you walk on water?
No?
Did you raise Lazarus from the dead?
Yes.
So are you saying that you did some sort of miracles, but not other sorts?
There's a few miracles in the Bible I didn't do, but the rest
you did?
The rest I did.
Like?
But most of the miracles involving recovery of people's sight, the recovery of their limbs. But the walking on water is one of the ones I didn't do.
Yes.
Another one that I didn't do was turning the water into wine.
You didn't, so you couldn't give us a nice little
You want to drop now,
Chardonnay?
do you? No.
No.
Yes, this asshat thinks he's Jesus, a Messiah who has made his followers believe he walked on this earth 2,000 years ago, so he is Jesus reincarnated. He claims to remember everything from his first time on earth, including the day of his crucifixion. Preparing his cult members for the end of the world, and is saying that they are disciples who were actually witnesses or participants in his first crucifixion. Let's talk about AJ Miller's early life. AJ Miller was born Alan John Miller, and he was born on the 10th of March 1963 in a really small farming community about 600 kilometers away from the Murray River in South Australia. His parents are Maxine and Alan Miller. When Alan was born, when AJ was born, he was born into the Anglican faith, but by the age of 7, his mother was researching other religions, and they ended up becoming Jehovah's Witnesses. In the mid-1970s, the Miller family moved from Loxton to Adelaide Hills. And it was at this time that Alan was a teenager, that AJ was a teenager, and he was a very shy, deeply spiritual teenager. And the only time he came out of his shell was to talk about theology within regards to religion. And during his spare time, him and his sister, Jenny, would go door to door, spreading the word of Jehovah's Witness theology. AJ left high school in 1979 and he went to Adelaide Regional College to do a course in computers, and that is where he found his fortune. He claims that he had a successful IT business that was helping small businesses and government departments with IT solutions. Working in IT still, he was still very, very active in the church. So just before his 21st birthday, at a youth group at the Jehovah's Witness Church, he met his first wife, Sherry Newman. He went on to have 2 sons with Sherry. They both moved up and further into the Jehovah's Witness faith. He ended up becoming a pastor at his church. Reports on whether he was by the age of 33 or in his 40s that he decided that he was Jesus. He talks about that from the age of 2, he felt as though he was having painful memories of the past. He was having memories and thoughts of his crucifixion, very graphic, aggressive thoughts and feelings. He shelved them, in his words, he shelved them away and didn't think about them, didn't talk about them, didn't anything until he was in his 30s.
My first memories were having nails driven through my feet
And those memories began when I was just over 2 years of age. So I didn't put them together as, oh, I'm Jesus from that. And so I just sort of slotted it into the back of my head and went merrily on with my life until such a time as I started having a lot more specific memories about my life, which happened when I was 33, really.
It was excruciating to watch.
At the time, he was still married to Sherry and he had his 2 sons. He went to go seek professional help. So he went to see a psychologist. Now, we don't know what happened in regards to the psychologist, but it is rumored that he has actually addressed this psychologist by sending them a letter. If they ever release his files, he will sue them. That is coming from an ex-member who we'll talk about more later on. So after seeking professional help, by the age of 40, he had what he calls an epiphany. He said the truth had been revealed to him by God, and he begun the process of writing them down and formulating them. So he sold his business, sold all of his possessions, and left his wife to go on the mission to spread the message that he was in fact Jesus Christ. Now let's talk about Sherry Newman just for a minute. Sherry Newman, I will link in a small tiny interview down below, but Sherry Newman now is actually remarried. She works as a housekeeper, and she also works with, she is no longer a part of the Jehovah's Witness faith, and she's also a part of an anti-religion support group to deal with obviously what had happened to her with the Jehovah's faith and what had happened with her in regards to her marriage, her marriage breakdown with AJ Miller. She also attends protests about the rights for children in regards to being in religious cults, religious sects, so on and so forth. So I will link a small interview down below, as she does not speak out very, very often because she does not want to risk you know, any negative feelings, emotions, anything like that for her children, because at the end of the day, she still has children with this man. And one of her sons, actually, that I know of, believes that their father is Jesus. So I guess she's just trying to be respectful and understanding that none of us really want our mums talking shit on our dad, even if our dad is absolutely fucking bananas. Just so you know. So Miller went on this journey, went to Queensland and started to have talkings, meetings, talks, groups, all those sorts of things to discuss with people like his ideas of laws of attraction, his ideas about that he is Jesus Christ, his idea about divine love and, you know, trauma from our childhood and all those sorts of things. This is the bit that I find so fascinating, right? He has a very, very, very cliche way of drawing people in my opinion. And when I start to talk about some of his members, you will see how he's done this. He starts off by talking to them about their childhood. He talks about links to trauma, anger from their parents, you know, things that their parents have done to them, all those sorts of things. Tells them that, you know, to get rid of their addictions in regards to alcohol, drugs, all these other things, right? Which is fair enough. We should not be, you know, enabling ourselves and our emotions with drugs and alcohol. That's why we go to counselling, not to Jesus. Well, AJ Jesus, Australian Jesus. Turn to the Bible, turn to religion. I have no issues with that. I myself am not religious. I grew up in the Mormon faith. I will talk more about my history in regards to religion, maybe in another video, because my father was a very interesting character in regards to religion. And I believe that if my father was alive today, he would be a cult leader. Now, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that in another video. But he has this method of getting people up on stage and just talking about, you know, his members are just so emotional, you know.
To the point where you know that this isn't right. And when you know it isn't right, obviously that is the time for you to leave.
My teachings are all about
giving you all of these things, but she wants a heap of things in return from you, and that feels bad to you. So allow yourself to connect with that. That's it. And as you connect to that, you will start really connecting. That's it. And as you connect...
Well, that my dad didn't want my mother. And
Basically the annihilation of the person that I love the most.
And there's no problem with being emotional, but they are very, very emotional. So he brings up, it's very, very common in new age movements, religions, cults, all these sorts of things, where they have you bring up all of this trauma from when you were young, from when you were a child, from things that you've gone through. 99% of us have shit from our childhood that we're not happy about, that we're not, you know, all gravy. But he has this way of bringing it all the way to the surface for these people, but not delivering. Does that make sense? So he gets it all the way to the top. He gets you in your feels, in your emotions, depressed as anything, traumatized, and then blames it on your family or blames it on yourself for the choices you've made. So he makes it so profound that you are an issue, your family is an issue. And then he just gives you a big old cuddle and says, "Follow me, I'm Jesus." This is how this man works. And I will explain more by just showing you bits and pieces of what I've seen in these interviews, these articles, these things about this man. So he has a close-knit group of 30 people that, in his words, have sacrificed it all to be with him. These are the type of people that are funding his events, are giving him all his money, all their money. There are people that have purchased homes around his country. So in the outback of Australia, where they are, which is Kingroy, Queensland, it's a lot of land. So he has his bit of land here, and I think it's 4 or 5 members that have purchased land around him and are donating this land to him to have a compound. Think about compound for a minute. We'll come back to it. Then we have his 13 disciples, okay, who are the ones that were a part of his crucifixion, who are here on earth for a second time, who were here in the 1st century, that are to spread the message and be a part of the next coming of Christ. AJ. Now, first one is a man by the name of Cornelius. See, I think that's his 1st century name. We'll stick to it as you will, my friend. Cornelius breaks my heart. I will be honest with you. Cornelius devastates me. The way this man, I'll put a clip in here, the way this man speaks just hurts my heart.
I'm called Cornelius, and that was my name in the 1st century, my identity. As such, I saw him and listened to what he was saying. I did come across him once, and I asked him about one of my servants that was sick, and he healed the servant. I was just quite amazed by what he did until the time came where we were asked to go and execute him. And then when my troops had to go and nail him to the stake, it was like a pole. It was me that had to do that, and as I just went to get the spike and smash it into his hands, he just kept looking at me. And just so much love that came from him. To me, I couldn't do it. I just had threw the mallet down, threw the spike down, and just walked off, which pretty much was my death sentence in those times. You don't do that.
Cornelius believes that he was a part of the 1st century. He was a very angry young man. He believes that he was molested, tortured, so on and so forth. In those days, he reached out to Jesus to help him with one of his servants that were ill, and was roped into being one of the people to hammer Jesus to the cross. And when he was apparently doing that, he felt very, very emotional. He looked at Jesus, and Jesus Christ looked at him with too much love. So he bowed down and said that he did not want to be a part of this. And now he feels now he says he was murdered because of that, and he feels terrible. And now he is using this life to make up for his sins and to show people the real love that he witnessed the first Jesus. Now the Aussie Jesus is also giving him that love. I don't know. I'm trying not to mock the man, but at the same time, I'm confused. Now, so we have Cornelius. Cornelius's partner. I don't know her name. I don't know whether she has 75 names that has lived 75 years. I can't tell ya. But she is someone who took her children and left her husband to join this. And now she's with Cornelius. Okay, we got that. Now, another part of the 13 disciples is his daughter. He has a daughter by the name of Sarah. Sarah is an adult. Sarah lives in Canada with her own family, and he has said that she wants nothing to do with her true path, her divine path to God. So there's another one. Then we have another one who was named John. Unfortunately, John was murdered, which has nothing to do with this cult, right? He was a homosexual man who had a housemate somewhere in Adelaide, and obviously this person had romantic feelings for John. John didn't reciprocate these feelings and murdered him, which is entirely unfortunate. And I think that might have affected Miller in some sort of way, from what I can see from interviews with ex-members who talk about this man. They were friends throughout the Jehovah's Witness faith, so on and so forth. Now we get to one that's very, very interesting, and I don't know how I feel about this one. I'm very on the fence about this. We're going to talk about Mary Suzanne Luck, who is AJ Miller's partner, who is claiming to be the second coming of Mary Magdalene. Yes.
I'm Jesus, this is Mary.
We have Jesus, we have Mary. They are here, they found each other in Australia. So here we go. Alright, so Mary Magdalene, or Mary Luck, is now AJ Miller's wife. Now, she is 13 years younger than him. They share 3 children. I won't be talking much about their children here because I just feel for them, immensely feel for them. But how they met was, so AJ Miller, as I've said before, he has done talkings and he has done, events, so on and so forth. He's hosted meetings. He actually did a meeting at Miss Luck's parents' home. And that's how she met him. And at first, she was not very interested in this man. She was not interested at all. Her parents said to her, "Oh, AJ, Jesus, claims that you're his soulmate." Now, I'm not sure whether her parents pushed her towards him or not, but they ended up getting together and getting married. Now, the cruel irony of this all is now that Miss Luck's family have nothing to do with her. Her parents are gravely concerned for her. They feel as though she's been manipulated and brainwashed. Her brother has stated that she's an absolute nutcase. He thinks she's lost her mind, lost her marbles, she's bananas, all those sorts of things. And she has no communication with her family.
When I first met AJ was at a talk in my parents' home. They had invited him to be there, and he just happened to be in our living room giving a talk, and that's how we met. Yeah.
One of the remarkable ironies of your life
Yes.
is the role of your parents.
My parents told me that that they had found out through someone else that AJ felt that I was his soulmate.
A former aid worker, she was born Mary Luck, but AJ has convinced her that she is Mary Magdalene.
So what's happened with you and your family?
I feel quite sad about it, David, yeah. Just that they don't accept what I want to do with my life at the moment. They don't agree with the way I'm living it.
But they introduced you.
I know, yeah. Sadly, my brother has said to me that he thinks I've gone mad. I remember being there and just the intense feeling of my soulmate, someone I feel very connected to, suffering immensely. Although I feel I suffered more than he did. But just because of the development in love that he had at that time. But for myself, it was excruciating to watch basically the annihilation of the person that I love the most.
You have convinced Mary that she was Mary Magdalene.
How has
Yes.
he convinced me?
You did not think that you were Mary Magdalene
I never
before you
even
met
told
AJ.
Mary she was Mary Magdalene.
You didn't tell her?
No,
he didn't.
I did not. So how can you say I convinced Mary?
Well, after she meets you, she begins to think that she's Mary Magdalene.
Well, that's her. I never spoke
You
to
had
her
no thoughts
it.
about that beforehand, did you?
No, but to be honest, I really had no idea who Mary Magdalene was.
How many Mary Magdalenes have there been in your life?
There's only one Mary Magdalene in my life.
But there's been others. Is it two,
No,
three?
no, you're not asking me, you're telling me.
All right, I'm asking you.
Okay.
Did you tell other girls before Mary that they were Mary Magdalene?
I told, yes, definitely. One girl.
Mr. Miller seems to use his position as Jesus to get sexual favors from women that he is attracted to. And so he says, well, this woman is Mary Magdalene. Wait a minute, no, this woman is Mary Magdalene. It reminds me of many other so-called cult leaders that I've run into over the years who use their position of spiritual authority to get what they want sexually, financially, in whatever means they wish from the people that become their followers.
So according to an ex-member from Dallas by the name of Dean, Dean claims at the time that Mary met AJ, she had just ended another relationship and was in a very vulnerable place. And men like this, people like this, can smell vulnerability a mile away and they go running, mate. They look for it. But she was not the first person that he had tried this with. Apparently in the past, to receive relations, sexual favors, whatever it might be, he claims that women are Mary Magdalene. But this girl fell right into it. And you see her in interviews, you see her in talkings, absolutely beside herself, crying as though her husband's just died, claiming that she's remembering the first crucifixion of her husband, Jesus. And this actually goes for AJ Miller, Jesus, as well. His parents, it was brought up in a 7 News interview that his parents, he was asked by the interviewer, is it true that your parents, Maxine and Alan, have tried to get you committed into a mental institution? He says, without skipping a beat, he says, yes, it is true. But if you look in the Bible and learn about my first time through the first century, how my ministry was, my parents also did that to me then. So he uses these things to make people be like, yep, I'm right, I know what I'm doing. And I find that so concerning because this man is so charismatic. He really is. Because there's one part of you that looks at him, just kick me camera. There's one part of you that looks at this man, you just think he's just happy-go-lucky, funny Australian. Then you figure out this fella thinks he's Jesus and he's Mary over here. And here's these poor children that are roped into this group because of their parents, all believing this asshat is actually Jesus. Now, if we talk about more about the members have donated money, members have moved closer to him, members have brought properties all over the world to give this dickhead, right? Also, he's breaking up families time and time again. There was a woman that was being interviewed saying that she had left her husband of 30 years to run off and join Miller and the crew, because Miller made it seem as though her husband was not her soulmate. I find that devastating, the way that he behaves, this fucking idiot. I feel so crazy sitting here talking about this. I'm just like, why is this, what?
Of cults have been in compounds, and some of the most terrible cult tragedies have been associated with that type of isolation.
This is the 600 acres that I was telling you about. It's currently owned by 4 different people. And what they're doing is they're just waiting for the organisation to be set up as a non-profit organisation, and then they want to donate the land to the organisation.
With money from his believers, Miller is acquiring properties here and around the world.
Sort of goes in that direction about a kilometre, and about that direction about a kilometre from here, and then it goes up the hill.
He calls them sanctuaries in readiness for the great cataclysm he's prophesying will soon engulf the planet.
So let's get back to the compound situation, okay, and why this is nerve-wracking, why this is uncomfortable, why this is, in 2021, a serious thing. If we talk about Jonestown, Waco, Heaven's Gate, right, they talk about the end of the world, Armageddon, all these sorts of stuff. And some of them pretty much predicted one too many times that the world was going to end. AJ Miller is no different. He has predicted 3 times since 2008 that the world was going to end. Some sort of crazy stuff was going to happen, including that Kingaroy, where he lives in Queensland, which I told you was outback Australia. Like, I mean bush. Like, you go bush bashing, like that is bush. He claimed that in September 2013, that there would become a seaside place, claiming that there would be a tsunami that wiped out everything to the Kingaroy border. Homeboy, didn't happen. And there are a number of other times where he has predicted this. When we see people that have predicted the end of the world and Armageddon and all those sort of things time and time and time again, they keep getting the fucking dates wrong. They build their own little compound. They build their own little place. And further brainwash and manipulate these people. And 2 things happen. When they start predicting all these end dates and nothing happens, there's only so much you can do before people start saying, well, this dickhead's full of shit, I'm out. Right? Which is very, very difficult, seeing as how they're so brainwashed. This guy's a dickhead, I'm out. Or this is when the ego hurts from people like this. The ego, they can't take it. They would rather have their members participate in a mass suicide or a fight to the death with the rest of the world with artillery and all those sorts of things than to have people find out that they are a fraud. We have children in this group talk about suicide and the end of the world and all those sorts of things. It's not that far-fetched to believe that this is what's happening right now. Rick Ross, who is a cult deprogrammer from the US, has come out and said these sorts of things as well, that this is the scariest point of a cult, when they become isolated and recluse from the rest of the world, and all day, every day is teachings and learnings of this bananas man. In a lot of interviews that I have seen, and a lot of bits and pieces of documentaries and articles that I've seen about Divine Truth and AJ Miller, is when people first meet him, they see this man that is all about love and all about the divine path to God and love and all those sorts of things. And he comes across as a very a very loving, well-intentioned Australian man who knows all. But if we look at further down the track with ex-members and people that have spent X amount of time with him one-on-one, they actually see a very different side. They see a man that's more militant. They see a man that is very passive-aggressive, very controlling, wants things a certain way, wants things done the AJ Jesus way. And it's very hard for people to actually see that or know that about him if they're in a room of 100 people and he's at a whiteboard with Mary Magdalene, who seems very lovey and adorable and all those sorts of things. It's very, very easy to fall for this man and fall for his so on and so forth. But once people get a little closer, get a little deeper, they are brainwashed, they are manipulated, they are in a state where they cannot leave this situation, but they also see a very, very different side to Miller, which is very aggressive, militant, controlling, and everything like that. So he does have the allure of a very common cult leader, you know, and I can understand why people fall for this. I really can understand it. You see this Aussie guy with long hair and you think, you know, beachside, fun, surfy Aussie dude, but he's not. And that's what's concerning, is I feel as though a lot of people are actually giving in to this man right now in 2021. And this compound that he claims is going to be learning centers is a bunch of hocus pocus, in my opinion. Oh my God, imagine if he comes and finds me. Oh my God. Don't hurt me, Jesus. But anyway, I would like to know what everyone else's opinions are. What do you guys think of this group, this cult, this, you know, they spread their message through DVDs, through YouTube. You know, he really wants the word out there. And I just wanted to put the word out there that he is a fraud, and it is terrifying that children are in this situation, and that we're getting eerily close to something that I predict will be scary and upsetting and concerning. When I was looking at all these like documentaries and all this stuff about him, it did concern me when I saw those kids talking, and when I saw that, you know, parents are bringing their children, you know, they're bringing their children, leaving their partners, breaking up families. It reminded me a lot of Chad Daybell and Laurie Vallow, and I feel like it's really upsetting that children are pulled into these situations that they have no control over. They're hearing conversations about adult dialogue that they should not be hearing about at all. So that's concerning. And well, but anyway, I just wanted to share Mr. Aussie Jesus, deal with it fellow, and Mary Magdalene and Cornelius and, you know, the disciples, Armageddon, I don't know, all that stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember to like, subscribe, send a pigeon. Please, please, please let me know if you really enjoy this type of content, because this content brings out a fire in me. I enjoy it. I love it. I have fun with it. So let me know what you think down below. Mwah! Bye, guys.
Find your tinfoil hat and settle in. Welcome to True Crime and Slumber Time with your host Bambi. Viewer discretion is advised.